The Sunday school lesson for August 18th, 2024 is A Servant Girl Points Naaman to God. 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 5 and verses 9 through 15a. Welcome, viewers and subscribers, to my channel, The Backstory and More. Viewers, please become subscribers and help this channel grow one viewer and one subscriber at a time. Also, if you are new here, notice that I will share the backstory, read the lesson text, and offer a brief lesson summary. Also, it is important to know that every Sunday at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, I upload a new fresh video for the upcoming Sunday. Keep that in mind as you view and subscribe to this channel. Since Elisha is a character in today's narrative, I will relate two very brief narratives about Elijah as reported in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 38 through 44. The first one is about the death in the pot. In the midst of a famine, Elisha was visiting a group of prophets and asked his servant to cook some stew for them to eat. With little together, the servant unknowingly grabbed wild, poisonous gourds and put them into the stew. When the men realized it was poisonous, they turned to Elisha for help. "Man of God, there is death in the pot." He asked for flour, which he threw into the stew and made it safe to eat. In the second narrative, entitled Feeding of 100, a man brought as a tithe to Elijah fresh bread and grain from his first fruits. Elisha asked the man to give it to the group, but the man resisted, saying there wasn't enough to feed 100 men. In a miracle that foreshadowed Jesus' feeding the crowds, John chapter 6, verses 1 through 15, Elisha told him that the Lord said there would be plenty for all. And sure enough, there was more than enough to eat. The backstory ends here, and our lesson begins with the next frame. Verse 1. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. Verses 2 through 3. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. Verses 4 through 5. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go to, go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. Verses 9 through 10. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. Verses 11 through 12. But Naaman was wroth and went away and said, Behold, I thought, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. Verses 13 through 14. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee do some great thing, wouldest thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he saith to thee, Wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again, like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Verse 15a. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. A brief summary. Naaman was a high ranking officer in the Aramean army who had distinguished himself as a great man and highly regarded and a valiant soldier. But he also had leprosy. The Hebrew word translated leprosy does not always indicate the severe affliction that we associate with that term. It can also describe other skin conditions. Whatever Naaman's condition, it was likely in its earliest stages. Note his reference to the spot in verse 11, suggesting there was a specific spot on his skin that was troublesome. In a skirmish with the Israelites, the Arameans had taken captive a young girl. Many captives exhibited bitterness or hatred toward their captors. This Israelite girl, however, developed a great respect for Naaman, whose wife she served. One day, the girl said to her mistress that if only Naaman would consult the prophet, he would cure him. So Naaman traveled to the king of Israel with a letter from the Syrian king, requesting that Naaman be healed. Faithless Joram thought it to be an occasion for war between the countries. Elisha heard of these things and told the king to send Naaman to him. So Naaman went to Elisha's door and waited, perhaps impatiently, for the prophet to come out. But Elisha did not appear, and instead sent a messenger whose word was simple: wash 7 times in the Jordan River. Then the leprosy would be cured. Naaman was furious, both at the prophet's refusal to come out to see him, and even more by such a seemingly ridiculous prescription for his leprosy. So he left in a rage. But Naaman was blessed to have discerning servants who pointed out that if Elisha had told Naaman to perform a feat of strength or endurance, some great thing, to be cured, Naaman would have accepted the challenge. He ought, therefore, to accept the very simple request of the prophet, even if it seemed absurd. The issue came down to this: how badly did Naaman want to rid himself of his leprosy? Naaman's servants convinced Naaman that his immediate reaction was wrong. So he did as Elisha commanded, and Naaman's flesh became clean. His attitude also radically changed, as reflected in his words to Elisha. Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. To show his gratitude, he offered gifts, which Elisha refused. Thank you so very much for watching and listening. Join me soon for the next backstory and more. Stay safe and may God bless.